Welcome to the Success is Subjective podcast series brought to you by collegealternative.org, presented by Lilley Consulting. I'm your host, Joanna Lilley. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing Tim Walsh. Tim is an outdoor educator and recovery coach trainer who specializes in guiding people through the external and internal wilderness. Over the last 25 years, he has founded and led numerous programs and institutions in youth development and the addictions recovery and prevention fields. He offers individualized support for those seeking purpose and spiritual development. Tim advises and develops experiential education, adventure therapy, and substance misuse awareness programs for private schools, youth development programs, treatment centers, and at national conferences. Now, Tim is a pioneer in the field of adventure-based counseling and was one of the founding members of Mountainside Treatment Center and served as executive director for Newport Academy. Tim has earned instructor trainer levels of certification in ACA, whitewater canoe, pro rescuer first aid and CPR, and lifeguarding, as well as certifications in advanced swiftwater rescue and whitewater kayak instruction, BCU Star 3 sea kayaking, wilderness first responder, recovery coaching, and adventure-based counseling. Clearly, he is often training. Now, in addition to all of those certifications, Tim studies various wisdom traditions, healing rites, and practical tools from elders and practitioners from both Western and Eastern disciplines. With reverence and respect for ceremony and ritual, Tim crafts a tailored approach to the personal transformative process, creating healing experiences for individuals of all levels. Now, when not on the river, Tim is with his family, exploring the natural world, paddling the New England rivers, and playing with his puppy. Let's not wait any longer. Here's Tim. All right. Well, Tim, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Joanna. Thanks for asking me.
We're just going to dive right in. So why don't you actually tell the listeners, where did you grow up? So like the area in which you were raised, and then what was the information that you were getting about post-secondary education from your family, as well as kind of that larger community in which you grew up in?
All right. Well, I grew up down in Fairfield County, Connecticut, in a town called Norwalk. And it's an interesting, really diverse mix of population down there, demographic, where the high school I went to, Brian McMahon, had almost a 50-50 split between a kind of white Anglo population to a mixed people of color. And so from that perspective, it was a really interesting opportunity for really seeing that there's a lot of different ways, to kind of proceed beyond high school. So we had a lot of kids who wanted to become athletes. We had a lot of kids who we're working in the trades already, like myself. And then we had kids who were, from especially more affluent side of town, kind of on that trajectory towards college from early on. So I grew up in a blue collar home. My dad was a plumber. My mom was a waitress. So I was adopted into the trades, and I was working in the trades through high school. And I struggled in high school, not so much academically, but behaviorally. I was, just to give the full disclosure, I had started using substances at a very young age, and there's a lot of childhood trauma that I'd been through. There's a lot of undiagnosed mental health issues between members of my family, myself, you name it. And we're going back a little ways here. So not to date myself too much. But so for me, high school felt more like prison. Then it felt like a place where I could really explore my own interests, explore my own personality. Being clouded by substance use, it wasn't exactly an easy task. So for me, what looked like the only way I would go to college would be athletic scholarship. And I was a 3-sport athlete my freshman year, 2 of which, those sports, I played varsity. So I had a talent and a gift, I guess, for athleticism. But I was also this kind of rebel without a clue, knucklehead who didn't do his homework, and therefore I didn't pass. So I was no longer eligible to play those sports. So that kind of immediately took college off, the plate. And I would spend my summers working all different types of jobs because I hated working with my dad, doing the plumbing job. And his response every time I got myself into something that I did not want to do, plumbing, and you can imagine, use your imaginations there. He would say, it's career elimination, son. So, and the idea of going to college just became less and less realistic. Now, my sisters, on the other hand, who are older than me, I'm Irish triplets. So I have two older sisters and then a younger brother who came 9 years later. So my sisters both were working towards college, and they knew that they'd be making that happen on their own. My family was not going to pay for it. And they both did. They both made it to college. They both got into college. They both got through college. And for them, that was just, worth the effort. And for me, it was the opposite. I was finally after, the one important piece I should mention is I was actually sentenced to high school. By the end of my career, I had gotten myself in a whole bunch of trouble. I got kicked out of school. It got worse after getting kicked out. And I wound up staring down a bunch of felony charges as a minor, and luckily got tried as a juvenile. So therefore, I had no record, but I was eventually convicted, and the judge, having the opportunity to sentence me himself, said, I think you'd rather go to prison than high school, so I'm going to send you back to high school. So I literally was sentenced to finish high school, otherwise finish out a suspended sentence. So, and it worked because it focused me enough to get back to school my second junior year and half senior year. I wound up graduating with honors. I kept my head down, just worked hard. And then I realized, I had actually started playing football again and got some letters and some invitations. But I realized, I can't do this school thing anymore. I need to get out of here. And so what I did is I took off to the Virgin Islands right after graduation. And what I did down there is I applied my skills as a cook and a plumber, working as little as possible while, living the beach bum life. And it was pretty epic. I got to play for a traveling rugby team that was, quote unquote, international, the St. John Goats. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that most people around the world don't actually rush off to college. They actually go on, holiday. They go on vacation. They go on tour. They go see the world. And they, our version of going to see the world in this country is, join the military, right? What's the line? Join the military, travel to exotic places, and then kill people. Meet interesting people and then kill them, I think is the line. And that was actually something I was looking at. But luckily, instead, I became a beach bum and, traveled around the islands and had a great time. Probably too good a time because I was still in my active substance use disorder and mental health disorder stuff untreated. But eventually, after getting some treatment in my early 20s, because that lifestyle very, diminishing returns for sure. Because every time I got someplace cool, because I went from the Virgin Islands across country, back and forth, living in Arizona, living in college towns, but not going to school, I just got deeper and deeper into the dark side of that lifestyle. So eventually when I got treatment and entered into my recovery, that's when I realized, well, you know what? The school thing maybe makes sense now. And this is when now I'm 22 years old. When I finally start realizing I can maybe direct this a little bit more myself. And I started doing community college and took a bunch of courses that really meant nothing except they were interesting to me. And from that, I realized, and then that parallel path was one of the first jobs I got in my recovery was in outdoor education. I just jumped into it, happened to meet some people who ran a program, and they gave me a job. So that was correlating with me finding Prescott College out in Prescott, Arizona, which had a really cool outdoor leadership program that was, a degree program. So I did the math and I was like, wait, I can make the same amount of money that it'll pay to go get this degree learning the same stuff. How important is that piece of paper really? And I tested my own theory. I worked just enough to make more than what it would have cost to go to school. I stopped doing the community college thing because I realized there just wasn't anything there for me. And I just poured into certificate style of education, I call it, where I just gained more and more credentials through outdoor leadership training, eventually becoming an instructor trainer level at different skill sets. So for me, that's the very non-traditional pathway of my higher education. The coolest thing about it is it helped me to really realize a lot of my frustration in high school was the fact that I didn't know what kind of learner I was. I didn't realize I was an experiential learner to the extreme. I needed to touch it, feel it, taste it, hold it, play with it, figure it out. I couldn't sit through any lectures. I couldn't sit through things that I just found that weren't interesting to me. It's not that I was afraid of a challenge. It's not that I didn't want to learn. It's not that I wasn't intelligent. It was all based on I was in a system that did not serve my needs. And ironically, I kind of run my own business now that's based on meeting people in their needs where they are and providing them with these really cool opportunities to realize, no, you're not a dummy. You might have made some mistakes, but there's a whole beautiful world out there and you should get after it. So that's a very long-winded answer to your question.
Well, and you're jumping ahead to kind of give a sneak peek into the work that you're doing now, which is awesome. But before we really dive into that, because obviously it's very clear to me as an outsider that like you have found your niche, right? Like once you found out your learning style, and then also really you questioned the norm, which I also greatly appreciate, right? Like, why do I need this piece of paper when I can just get the skills? So like really thinking, which I think that a lot of folks lack nowadays, but I'm not obviously not shitting on the audience, so forgive me if you like went the straight and narrow with whatever post-secondary path you went on. But I think it's helpful too, at least I know like a brief window of some of the jobs that you've kind of held along the way, but I think that that's also led to the work that you're doing now. So if you could, obviously you kind of said it at 22, you were starting to explore, like, do I go to Prescott? Do I really need this degree in outdoor leadership? Can I do something else, right? Can I just gain the skills? So kind of fill us in from that point and some of the jobs that you had and the experiences that you were gaining leading up to starting this business.
Absolutely. So, just to back up too, the one thing I always stress about my success, if anyone wants to call it such, it boils down to the mentors I've had. That's what I can't give any more credit than to exactly that. In high school, when I was sentenced, I had 3 teachers who literally stepped up and said, we have you now. You're ours now. And you're going to do exactly what we tell you. And we're actually going to make you do more, not less. And it was just like, oh my God, the judge was right. I'd rather go to prison. Because they saw, quote unquote, my potential. And I hated that word. I hated, like, if you see so much potential in me, then just give me my straight A's, right? So entitlement. But they really went out of their way to help me believe that I had some skill, right? Then, combine that with the different mentors I had as employers, right? So landscaping at 14 years old, plumbing, not just with my dad, but with other, master plumbers. Stacking wood one year, working with this crazy guy in a chainsaw, just learning about, how to be safe doing something really, really dangerous, right? And then just hundreds of other jobs. Like I would just try anything. And then also kitchen. I grew up kind of around kitchens, with my mom being a waitress and stuff. My whole family at one point worked in the same restaurant. It was pretty wild. So I'll add this, and this might be a little off color for some of the folks listening, but I sold drugs. And I wasn't very good at it because I was also my number one customer. However, I learned, something about what it takes, right, to make a buck and to hustle, quite frankly. And I don't mean that in a manipulative way, but I mean in like you got to keep going, right? The beeper never stopped kind of thing. And for those in your audience who don't know what a beeper is, look it up. So and just all of those things combined, I think really helped me to have a work ethic is really what that boils down to and what I'm trying to get to. So now I'm in my recovery, and now I'm seeing the world in a completely different perspective. I no longer feel like I'm a victim of all these circumstances in my life, but I'm really beginning to see how they were themselves lessons and teachings. And, I always say to folks we work with now, we're taking the Jedi from the dark side to the light side, right? Same powers, the same force. We're just shifting the perspective. And back to those mentors, they always tried to do that for me. And the ones that I respected the most allowed me enough room, right? There's a saying we also use, don't ever rob someone of the dignity of their own suffering. And they didn't, they let me, crash and burn. So now I'm in my recovery, and I'm working towards I'm going to try anything again like this. Now I'm really free to learn and to do. And what happened is I started working not just in the outdoor industry, and this is in outdoor education. It wasn't outdoor therapy. It was all just like working with high functioning groups and kids and doing really cool trips and expeditions. I'd come out of those, and then I'd be like, hey, my recovery community just seems to be hanging out in church basements. Like, what's all these young people doing, following all these old people around? Let's go do some fun stuff. So that's where the rest of my career started to kick in. I started getting involved in treatment organizations, in continuing care programs, halfway houses, sober living programs, churches. Like that's one of the biggest ironies. One of my first early jobs was being a youth director for a church. And the only reason I got that job is they needed somebody to run a mission trip, and I happened to be available. And I got on the job site of Habitat for Humanity with 30 kids and power tools, and I just like, whoa, stop. Everyone put the tools down. Why the hell are these kids holding skill saws? And changed the whole paradigm for that program right there. And the guy who ran the church and ran the youth program grabbed me and said, let's go. Let's build this thing. And we wound up creating this amazing program together. So again, a mentor, right? Someone who saw something in me, non-traditional learner, non-traditional thinker, non-traditional doer. And then, another opportunity was a treatment center that was opening. Some guys who actually were like kind of came in after me in my treatment experience. Older, nothing in common whatsoever. They were very successful business people. I'm a knucklehead dirtbag outdoor educator who happens to goof off with this youth group thing. And they were like, hey, let's do this adventure thing in treatment. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So that's how I helped, start a program up here in Northwest Connecticut. That was just one of those things where, I tell people, don't ever accuse me of being ambitious, because I'll, run away. But rather see what I'm doing as an act of service. And that was what I was taught in early recovery. Be of service, right? Say yes. And that's kind of where that part of my career took off, is starting to say yes more in the treatment side of things. And again, I tried going back to school and say, hey, maybe I need a degree now, because, there's all these people with letters after their names. And once again, I came up against these prerequisites, and I came up against some philosophies that I thought were quite counterproductive, quite frankly, to what I had learned about recovery, that peer-to-peer is a powerful methodology. So I pushed back, and I got promoted. So, that's kind of how I got into the treatment world, right? Is I just kept pushing back and getting promoted. And the cool part is eventually becoming executive director of multiple programs. Really, my job was to hire people who were smarter than me, right? Hire people who were more educated than me, hire people who were, multiple advanced degrees. And that process of teach me, right? So again, learning that I can still learn and not have, if I'm not worried about the piece of paper, I can still learn. I can still educate myself. I can still ask these people who are smarter than me, more capable than me, how to better problem solve a bigger problem that I'm responsible for. And that's, I bring that all back to outdoor leadership, right? How do you successfully bring 12 teenagers on an expedition for 14 days where they're carrying everything either in their boat or on their back? You got to empower people to make decisions individually as well as collectively. You got to give people space for real communication. You've got to give people space for real feedback, right? And you got to, most importantly, be able to model it all and take it, and that's always been the leadership style that worked best for me. So therefore, I've honed that. So that's kind of the second stage, I guess, of my professional development.
Leading up to like the spotlight on what it is that you're doing now, which is super exciting. I feel like I had a very small taste of that the last time I was in Connecticut, which just like totally lit a fire under me. But here's the opportunity for the shameless plug. Like, where did the light bulb come off for what it is that you're doing? But oh, by the way, what is it that you're doing?
Well, again, thanks for coming to visit. That was a great day. And again, for the audience, Joanna's a mean paddleboarder. she knows she knows how to stay upright. But so Adventure Recovery is the name of the organization that I founded now 9 years ago. And really, it's this culmination of having worked in so many different ways with so many great mentors, most of which my happiest days working for others had been in the outdoors and with people in recovery. Right? So not that to negate all the powerful experiences I've had with people who are, quote unquote, normies, right? People who maybe have not had a recovery experience, but just that being witness to the transformation that often occurs in early recovery where, a light bulb goes on. So speaking of the aha. So for me, the aha was really, I don't know if you've ever heard this saying about 12-step fellowships, but there's only one requirement for starting a new fellowship meeting. So an AA meeting or an NA or whatever. That's a resentment and a coffee pot. And nowadays it's a resentment and a Zoom ID, I guess. But, anybody start their own meeting. And that's something I participated in, right? I had that experience of like, this isn't working. Let's go do something better. And that's kind of what I've learned business is about, right? Like, hey, that's not working for me anymore. Let's go do something else. That's why people leave, careers to start their own businesses. And that's kind of the culmination for me is I just got more and more frustrated seeing what I believe is a necessary pendulum swing in a lot of ways in the treatment field to going from a very peer-centric to a very clinically centric model. As much as I supported this swing, it seemed to be swinging way too hard in the opposite direction. So I felt very strongly that we needed to actually, quite frankly, professionalize the peer support model. And if that's the case, why not do it the way I know how best, which is train people in early recovery to become peer support through adventure, through outdoor skills development. And that was the, aha, right? And the coolest aha of that was we originally launched it as like a sober living model where we were going to do this NOLS kind of curriculum over the course of 90 days, 2 weeks in-house, 2 weeks in the field. And it was a great idea. It just needed a lot of funding to really pull it off. And thankfully it didn't happen because I would have been gone for 2 years, right? While raising, twins and, marriage and starting a business, all that stuff was a bad idea. Right? It was a great idea on paper, but a very poorly executed. So what was cool is that gave me a chance to take a big step back and see, well, what are the pieces, right? And at the same time, I had two different mentors in the same week ask me the same questions, which were, if not now, when? And if not you, who, right? And the third thing they did is they didn't ask a question. They gave direct, advice. Why not run it like a yoga teacher training? Because my mission at that point was just train people. What they did with the credential, I was like, go. We'll help you get jobs in outdoor leadership, whether it's therapeutic or recreational, educational, we'll help you get jobs. What these guys helped me see, because they were both yoga teacher trainers, and they said, you're basically going after the smallest population. When there's a huge population of practitioners out there who have the money, who have the time, who have the resource, and just like you, have the resentment, where they want to see this, they want this to be better than it is, and they're frustrated. Why not go after them and do it like a yoga teacher training, which would be every, like a weekend a month over the course of a year, rather than cram it all into a 90-day curriculum. And that's when that second light bulb really went off. Like, wow, that's really smart, right? And so that's how we launched our initial guide training program. And the result of training guides was, guess what? Hey, man, can we work for you? And I had no excuse to say no, because my phone was ringing off the hook for private clients and for institutional clients who wanted what we were building. And now that's fast forward. So that was 7 years ago that we reworked the whole thing. Fast forward now, we have trained over 90 people. In this year already, we've trained more people in this year than we have any other year prior. And we have a bunch of trainings on the books, right, that are already filling up, which is wild. We booked a training that wasn't even on the books, and filled it, and it was fantastic. It actually even led more towards that clinical community. This one was very heavy on licensed clinicians. Came to us for the training and said, sign us up for more. So it's this really cool just growth experience where, and by the way, out of all the people we've trained, not all of them work for us, and nor do we necessarily want them to. We want people to take this training and go do it, right, wherever it may be. If we have work for you, we'll give it to you. But we've now had people from all over the country show up either in Connecticut or Colorado. We have ongoing contracts in Connecticut, Vermont, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, I'm forgetting somewhere, Delaware, and then out west, all throughout Colorado. And as you know, we're looking at California. We're looking at Seattle. So there's just these new opportunities presenting themselves left and right. And it all boils down to, we encourage our community to do the exact same thing that my mentors have encouraged me my whole life, which is get after it, right? Don't let any of these pre-existing notions that you have of yourself, of what you have of success, what the world calls, success, and just go for it. And if you're in recovery, which again, we draw a very large community of people in recovery to our model, you already have a superpower. You've overcome, especially when it comes to mental health and addiction, right? You've overcome life-threatening, self-imposed, dis-ease, right? That you've had to manage your whole life for most people, until the moment you realize there's a solution, there's a way out. That energy, you can't train, right? That skill set, I can't train. That's a gift. So when we see it and we capture it, and then we apply it to these technical outdoor skills experiences in this way of learning, people just blow up. And here's the perfect wrap up to that. Saturday morning, I had to drop one of my crew off to another guy's house. And these are both young guys in their 20s. And the second guy's dad comes out of the garage. And I jump out of the truck to shake his hand, say hello. And he gives me a very firm handshake. And he's a mechanic, so you can imagine. And he just looks me in the eye, and he holds it. And he says, "Thanks for giving my son purpose and place." And this is his adult son who's gone through some, trials and tribulations, been through some traditional learning struggles, and he's just glowing, right? And the dad's, getting teary-eyed. And I just looked at him, and I pointed to the other guy and who I'm dropping off. I said, blame him, right? Because that's how this works. This other guy is the one who's been doing this now for 2 years, and he knows the value of it all. Your son, picked up what he's selling, not me, and that's the coolest thing about what we're doing with Adventure Recovery, is we're truly building this community of professionals, right, who would never consider themselves such. And I tell them all the time, no, you've got real credentials. These are real skills. And here's one last caveat. We had a raft out yesterday with a bunch of high school kids that my son is the junior guide for, 16-year-old. And we get off the river, and today, it was a great trip. We had a great time. The only, I'm the lead guide, and I swam. So just goes to show how willing we are to, demonstrate our lack of skill sometimes. And I get to the local coffee shop this morning, and the guy's like, "Did you see what? I saw your truck, and there was ambulances, and there was fire trucks, and I was like, no, I didn't see any of that because we were on the river." And he said, "Yeah, but there's something going on the river." I said, "Well, that's the beauty of doing things safely and professionally." And by the way, when I swam, it was a place where we're just goofing off. And I've told the guys, like, we're probably going to flip the raft doing this, and it's going to be fun, so don't worry about it. But I was the only one who went swimming. But anyway, the coolest thing about that, and not cool at all that there was some kind of emergency, is knowing that if that emergency did involve us, it would have been, we were more likely to be on the rescuer side than, the problem side. And we've actually been called upon by our local, fire and rescue to support. And that to me is just like, okay, what are we really trying to do in this day and age, right? We're trying to teach young people how to be self-sufficient. We're trying to teach young people how to be thoughtful and kind and considerate of others. And I believe ultimately we're trying to teach people how to preserve this beautiful world of ours, to be explored and to be experienced, so that we don't need so much external stimulus to keep us interested, keep us productive, keep us, just kind of slogging along. And ultimately, I believe that people who have a recovery experience, people who realize that one way wasn't working and they need a new way, that when they engage in the outdoor experience and when they see nature doing its thing so effortlessly, so willingly and so beautifully on a regular basis, it taps something inside them. They realize, like, whoa, wait, why am I working so hard? Why is this so hard for me? Well, because I'm out of my nature. I'm not in nature. I'm not of nature. I'm doing something that we're not supposed to do. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, sitting is the new smoking, right? We are engineered to walk 20 miles a day barefoot. That's how we're designed, right? So that alone, if you just take that simple fact and then juxtapose it to our current conditions, it's pretty easy to see why people are depressed and anxious, right? It's pretty easy to see why people don't feel like they fit in their own skin, and why social media has such power over them and their inability to see themselves as a whole person, right? Without all the external likes. So what we really believe is that ultimately, by walking this path and demonstrating this work and by living this lifestyle, we're really, quite frankly, highly effective environmentalists, right? We're working on the internal environment while embracing the external environment, and therefore shifting everyone's perspective as to just what we really need to thrive. And really, we don't need much. And when we dial it all back, that's sustainable. And sustainability is our core value of everything we do. So if you're going to sustain your life, sustain your recovery, sustain your education, sustain your business, sustain your family, you probably need less than the world is telling you. And the best way to see that is develop some skills to be outside comfortably in all conditions and realize that you can thrive. So that's my pitch. Shameless, and I appreciate it. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Cost me a lot of money, despite the fact I didn't go to any big colleges.
Well, and you did pepper in a couple times, like talking about success based on some of those mentorships or the mentor relationships, or just kind of experiences building up to where you are now. I'm just going to ask you point blank, do you see yourself as successful?
I am more successful than I've ever been because I'm happier than I've ever been. And the people around me are happier than I've ever been around happy people. And my dog loves me.
That's the true indicator of success.
He gets to go with me everywhere I go. And my kids love me, and they're 16 years old, and they come with me wherever I go. My daughter is not as keen on it as my son, but she's got her lists. She's got the big lists. My wife and I are very, very proud of the fact that, and by the way, Kim is my wife and my business partner as much as she is my life partner, and we're both very proud of the young adults our children are becoming in the world. And we attest a lot of that to what we call the aunties and uncles they've been surrounded by, which are the AR guides. They've been raised by them as much as they've been raised by us. And I think that's another piece about our communities that we're missing, right? We've pushed aside the auntie and uncle role. And again, not blood auntie uncle, right? But the tribal auntie uncle for these, high elevated positions of authority that actually are told they can't have a more intimate relationship with these kids. Now, again, what I mean by intimate is very simple. You get to show your humanity to the children, right? Whereas we've completely changed it. Now it's like, nope, don't show them anything. Don't share any of yourself. Be the authority. And just like I think my experience was, a lot of these kids see through it, right? It's really hard to trust an adult who you can tell is struggling in their own way, by the way they communicate, by the way they carry themselves, by the way they are showing up for their job. And it's very hard to take them seriously when you're a teenager who's designed to rage against the machine, right? That's your job as a teenager. Question it all, right? And any adult that tells you not to, here's the one time I may have sweared the whole time. They're full of shit. And no, by the way, I didn't open with my only disclaimer. Yes, I have no college degrees. I have a ton of certifications and such, but I have one very important credential that is the hardest one to keep and the most difficult to earn, and that is I am a professional adolescent. I get paid to play, baby.
I love that. Okay, well, in my follow-up, and this will be kind of the last question, is if you could give one piece of advice to a young adult, and maybe it's like, somebody who is similar to Tim, circa 17, 18 years old, or just somebody who is kind of, again, questioning the norm. Why would I go to school when I can make the same amount of money as it would cost? So, or however you want to interpret that, what piece of advice would you give a young adult right now?
Find an adult or so-called adult that's living the life you want and hound them to be your mentor. I can't think of any better way to learn. So, and if you can't find that person where you live, pack a bag and hit the road. Yeah.
I love that too. I've just been, nobody in the audience can see this, but I just feel like I've had this shit eating grin plastered on my face the entire time. Cause I'm like, yes, your personal story and your professional story just are so intertwined, but there's just so much wisdom in the experiences that you've had that is so important for the parents listening to this podcast, just as much as the young adults. So,
and again, shameless plug, it's also what we do as a business, right? So we help young people figure that out. And the parents that come to us, very reluctantly with their babies, right? Again, there's their adult, or emerging adult children, but they're still the babies. We say to them, we believe trust is earned and we appreciate the opportunity to earn your trust. However, it's no longer your responsibility to raise your child. It's now our responsibility as a community to guide them towards their purpose. So give them to us, right? Give us the opportunity. And that's the model that we have created here. It's completely customized to the individual. The groups and such that we do, the institutional programs we do, it's a curriculum and such. But when it comes to the individual, these are the questions we ask. How hard, how far, how long, and what vehicle, right? What skill? What do you want to learn? And, how far out there in the world you want to get? How hard do you want this challenge to be? And how long do you want to be out there? And we've had one client in 9 years, and we've served, we're over thousands at this point. Get out of my truck, I say, out of any of our vehicle, right, or their vehicle, and say, F you and never come back. One, right? And every other one has come back. And that's the other thing too, that we tell the families and we tell these clients is this is your life. This is your opportunity. This is your baby. We're here to guide you, right? As you allow us to. But you're driving the bus on this whole thing. So if you say no, no's the answer. We don't force. And we've had a few people, look at us sideways when we've shown up. Like, you know me, I'm a pretty big guy. I can come across pretty intimidating at first, where they've thought they're, being quote unquote gooned, right, and shipped off. And I had one guy in particular where we get off the plane in Colorado. There's this really cool 4-wheel drive truck all tricked out with, tents and gear and whitewater surfboards. And we're getting in the truck and he's like, oh my God, we're really doing this? I was like, what? He's like, we're really going river surfing for 5 days in Colorado. I said, yeah, we've been talking about this for weeks. He goes, dude, I swear to God, I thought you were gooning me the whole time. I was like, is that why you're acting so weird in the airport? He's like, yeah, man. I was like, we've known each other for years, actually. This is a guy I've been working with for years. And I'm like, and you still thought? He's like, yeah, because I'm just an idiot. And I just figured my mom was sick of me.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, well, maybe that's going to happen when we get done, but we're going surfing for 5 days, dude. So it's that cool transition, right? Where I tell people we're stealing back the terms recovery and adventure from all these other programs that have kind of taken away the true individual aspects of what they really are, which is everyone deserves their own journey.
So, important last question. How do folks connect with you and or Adventure Recovery?
AdventureRecovery.com. I'm timw at AdventureRecovery.com. Forgive me if you don't hear back from me for a few days because I get to be in the field all the time. Our social media stuff, if you just kind of plug in Adventure Recovery on all those things, it'll pop up. We've got a pretty cool social media expert doing our stuff. So whenever people are like, dude, your social media is great, I'm like, cool. I don't look at it. I'm too busy doing it. So check us out. And when it comes to getting involved, info at Adventure Recovery, you're guaranteed to get somebody right back to you within 24 hours. And again, if you don't hear back from someone within 24 hours, it means we're all in the field. We're not ignoring you, but we will get back to you as quickly as possible.
So long story short, be patient and they will get back to you because right now they're living it or doing it and they'll return your communication when they're out of the field. Yes. So Tim, thank you for taking the time to do this. This was awesome to hear more of your story because I had a sliver of it leading up to Adventure Recovery. So this was super cool. But I always say this and I genuinely mean it every time. I know that at least one person is going to listen to this, whether it's a parent, whether it's a young adult directly, they're going to really resonate with your story. And my hope is that they reach out to you, not just to connect with you. Maybe you're the mentor that they're needing, right? Or maybe you can connect them to that larger community that they need. Or maybe they just want to express gratitude to you for being vulnerable and honest and sharing kind of your journey and your view of success leading up to this point. Regardless, I hope that they do reach out to you. And when you're out of the field, you can make that connection. Again, I'm just super grateful that you took the time to be on the podcast.
Well, thank you again for asking. It's really an honor. And I forgot one last plug, which you will really appreciate. Parents, you're invited too.
There you go. You heard it.
Yeah,
this is going to be the call to action. All the parents need to be connected.
It's not just about the kids, guys. Yeah. In fact, when I ran an adolescent treatment program, I used to threaten the parents, we're going to send all the kids to camp and you're all coming into treatment. I've since modified that to we're all going to camp. We just all go back to camp, right? Yeah.
Totally. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Joanna.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. I want to thank my guests for joining me on this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it wasn't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for the next episode where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guests. And also put a face with a voice by accessing their interview on the newly formed successissubjective.org website. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email me at Joanna, Joanna, at successissubjective.org. I would also be remiss if I didn't tell you to check out the collegealternative.org and lilyconsulting.com websites for additional resources outside of podcasting. If you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please do me a favor and subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to Success is Subjective on any other popular podcast apps such as Amazon, Audible, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. And last but not least, Success is Subjective is listener supported, made possible by me and by you. You can show support for the continuation of this podcast by donating on the successissubjective.org website. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.
Do you have a teenager or young adult who seems to have lost their way? Maybe they need help navigating adolescence, adulthood, and decisions surrounding higher education. Or maybe they have become withdrawn, their grades are slipping, or they are flat out living a reckless lifestyle, and you're concerned about their health and well-being. If this describes what your teen or young adult is facing, a therapeutic consultant may be able to help. Mental health, addiction recovery, and higher education can all be equally expensive. While information is everywhere, how do you know what option is the best one for your family? Some parents have the time to research and navigate this on their own. Some don't. If the latter applies to you, enter therapeutic consultants. Therapeutic consultants, like Joanna, listen to your family's specific needs and advocate on behalf of your loved one. TCs will research therapeutic resources, recommend treatment programs, and assist during adulthood transitions. Not being affiliated with any program, their support is completely objective and catered toward the best interest of each unique family. To find a qualified therapeutic consultant to work with, check out TCA, also known as the Therapeutic Consulting Association. Their website is therapeuticconsulting.org, all one word. Again, that's therapeuticconsulting.org. Then click the Find a Pro tab up at the top.